Department targets to accredit some 50 more COVID testing facilities to ramp up the country's testing capacity. A doctor who's also a COVID survivor is leading Quezon City's Hope 3 coronavirus treatment facility. The national government reclassifies its lockdown measures almost 2 months since the start of the enhanced community quarantine in Luzon. Following the recommendation of the Interagency Task Force against COVID-19, the following regions shall practice minimum health standards, meaning they are neither under ECQ nor GCQ. Ilocos Region, Mimaropa, Bicol Region, Western Visayas, Eastern Visayas, Northern Mindanao, Soc-Sargen, and the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region. Meanwhile, the following areas shall be under GCQ: Cagayan Valley, Central Luzon, Calabarzon except Laguna, Cordillera, Central Visayas except Cebu City, Zamboanga Peninsula, Davao Region, and Caraga. Laguna, Cebu City, and Metro Manila shall be under modified ECQ. Under this new community quarantine measure, some manufacturing and processing industries will be allowed to open with a limit of 50% capacity. Selected transportation will also be allowed to operate for essential work and services. Physical classes shall also remain suspended. The latest government decision to ease quarantine rules will pave the way for the resumption of public transportation in Metro Manila. To give us more details on this, joining us live from Parañaque is News 5 correspondent Gerard de la Peña. Gerard, what are experts saying about the possible scenario once public transportation will be allowed by the government, and what's the new normal will be like?
Well, just to answer the question, a transportation advocate says that there's going to be chaos if the government will stick to its old ways in terms of operating transportation. Physical distancing brought about by the so-called new normal could prompt transport operators to cut their capacities by half, and this would mean that this could result in longer lines at trains and bus stops, and also even longer travel times for commuters. Jess.
Gerard, you also talk about scaling down operations. How will this likely affect the operators, considering that the LTFRB won't be allowing fare increases once the ECQ is lifted, although it's also open to providing subsidies instead?
Well, Jess, the experts said that this could result in triple whammy for the economy, because this could mean that operators may no longer find it viable to mount trips, and drivers could lose their jobs, and also commuters could also lose their jobs if they're unable to come to work. As Robert C., the transportation expert, says, many operators will not be able to survive. Hindi sila magiging profitable kung kalahati lang yung ridership nila. I think it would be very risky to go back to our old system and allow all our transport operators to compete for passengers as we see in the past. Ang mangyayari, it will be very difficult to manage yung queuing and yung crowding. Jess.
Well, Gerard, in that case, if the new normal won't be attractive for PUV operators and drivers, how then will people travel?
Well, Jess, Mr. C said that the government should instead contract those vehicles being used for public transportation, so that we could avoid prevent PUVs from competing for passengers. He also said the government should also create bike lanes as well as spaces for people to walk on. Mr. C also said that there will be more than 1 million Filipinos in Metro Manila who will not be able to get on public transport, and they will have no option but to walk or to use a bicycle. He also said, Jess, that the silver lining in all this COVID-19 is that we can make some dramatic changes which were not politically acceptable or possible in the past. Jess.
All right. Thank you very much for those updates, News 5 correspondent Gerard de la Peña. Just like Hopes 1 and 2, Quezon City's Hope 3 will serve as a safe isolation facility for COVID-positive patients, where they will be provided with round-the-clock medical care, including medicines. But Hope 3 also paid particular attention to patients who are nursing infants as well as entire families. Lynn Olavario tells us more.
The third installment of Quezon City's Hope Care Facility, or Hope 3, opened its doors on Monday. It's not just the patient's medical needs that the city took into consideration when they converted this former dormitory for government workers into an 84-bed COVID facility. The city also kept patients' comforts in mind as rooms are air-conditioned and there are access to Wi-Fi and TVs. The center will also provide other necessities such as meals, even toiletries.
Kasi pinaghahandaan natin yung tinatawag na second time. Yung ating community-based testing center, talaga pong kinakalap na po namin. So kasi nakikita natin yung mga hospitals, ang daming moderate to severe. So dapat doon pa lang sa signs and symptoms or yung may mga tinatawag na positive exposure, even without signs and symptoms, dapat pumunta na po sila sa ating mga community-based testing centers.
But what's different about Hope 3 is the special attention on COVID-positive mothers and probable moms who have just given birth. It also paid attention to the patient's infants or newborns who are not showing any symptom of the disease. The babies, though, will have to stay in the nursery room where they will be cared for by midwives. The COVID-positive or probable patients who are under isolation will still be able to breastfeed their babies in the feeding room. But they will need to take a bath first, wear a face mask, face shield, and a gown.
Doon papasok na yun. Kaya may additional features yun sa nursery namin for well babies. Okay? Para po yung breastfeeding.
Another feature unique to Hope 3 is the cohabiting setup, where COVID-positive patients from the same family can share a room.
Kunwari, husband and wife na both positive, yung mga magkakapatid, magnanay, basta kapamilya. So, meron din kaming yung nilalaan dyan na family room, yung malalaking rooms na good for 4. Kasi yung upcoming namin na pasyente na parating, they are 4, 1 grandmother and 3 children.
They will be attended to by 2 doctors, 6 nurses, and 6 midwives.
Ang staff natin, straight na 2 weeks yan. 2 weeks na magjo-duty, walang uwian, no visitors allowed, and then sila mismo yung maglalagay ng mga pagkain, sila mismo yung magkukuha ng basura. Tapos, after 2 weeks of straight duty, magto 2 weeks na strict home quarantine.
One of the team leaders of the medical staff is Dr. Vincent Mendoza, who knows exactly what it's like to battle and survive COVID-19. The 35-year-old doctor who volunteered to help in the Hope 1 facility contracted a virus while on duty.
Nahirapan lang din talaga po dahil mahirap po talaga yung ma-isolate ka ng ilang araw na ang nakikita mo lang yung mga astronaut. Wala naman makausap. Hindi ko makausap kapatid ko, hindi ko makausap magulang ko, mga mahal ko sa buhay.
Doc Vince also chose to keep his condition a secret. He didn't want to worry his parents, who are both doctors and senior citizens.
Siyempre, naalala ko magulang ko, kapatid ko. Baka nagsisi na nag-volunteer ba ako dito. Pero yun nga, sa awa ng Diyos, sabi ko nga, ulit-ulitin ko naman, di naman ako nagsisi sa decision ko.
Doc Vince also turned to his faith during the 22-day ordeal. And now that his prayers were answered, he feels that serving patients at Hope 3 this time around is a good way to pay it forward. For News 5, Lynn Olavario, We Are One News.
We'll pause for a short break, but when the big story returns, the health department pushes to accredit some 50 more COVID labs to ramp up testing for SARS-CoV-2. And Quezon City continues handing out the government's cash aid despite missing the deadline. The details when we come back. I'm Jess De Los Santos and you're watching The Big Story. Mayor Francis Zamora says he is in favor of the ECQ extension despite San Juan posting one of the slowest case doubling rates in the country. Marian Enriquez has a story.
The health department is targeting to test as many as 28,000 samples in a day. At present, the country's 23 accredited testing centers can only handle a total of 8,000 samples every day. So the department wants to accredit some 50 more testing labs to ramp up our testing capacity.
Marami din mga laboratories na hindi naman basta-basta nakakapasa sa proficiency test. May mga laboratories, mga 3-4 na beses bago makapasa ng proficiency test. Pero ganun pa, tinutulungan ng atin na RITM na sila ay makapasa sa kanilang proficiency testing.
Health Secretary Francisco Duque III and San Juan Mayor Francis Zamora earlier visited frontliners tending to probable and suspect cases at the San Juan Elementary School. Duque praised the local government's, quote, successful management of the fight against COVID-19. San Juan has the second slowest doubling time of positive cases among the cities in Metro Manila. The city records just 2 or 3 new cases daily. Some days, there isn't even a single tally. Despite this, Zamora says he is in favor of extending the ECQ in San Juan.
Maganda po ang nakikita nating datos ngayon, ngunit mas gusto ko po bilang mayor na yung slowly but surely. Para sa akin po, mas makakatulong sa San Juan ang ECQ. Personally, I favor a little more extension.
Malacanang earlier confirmed that Metro Manila will remain under a modified ECQ scheme until the end of the month, along with Laguna and Cebu City. Zamora says San Juan is prepared for such a scenario. The city has set aside funds for the distribution of food packs. Swabbing is also continuous to meet the local government's target of testing 400 samples every day. As for the city's over 16,000 SAP beneficiaries, only 1,000 have yet to receive the dole-out. For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
The Quezon City government continues handing out the government's cash aid to beneficiaries even if it had already missed the deadline set by the DILG. JC Cosico tells us more.
The distribution of the social amelioration subsidy in Barangay Payatas, Quezon City started past 12 in the afternoon on Tuesday. Cashiers from the Quezon City Treasurer's Office arrived 4 hours late for Tuesday's distribution of cash aid, which should have started at 8 a.m. The reason, they pulled an all-nighter completing yesterday's payout.
Uuwi ka ng alas 2 ng madaling araw, papasok ka rito ng alas 8. Hindi natin matatapos yan, mas mauuna pa kami mamatay sa pagod kaysa sa COVID.
71-year-old Carmen Barrera braved the heat and waited for hours.
Kukuha ako ng pang-maintenance. Wala na akong naghahanap buhay . May kanya-kanya ng pamilya mga anak ko. Pagkakasayin na lang. Itutulong ko dun sa mga apo ko.
While others were glad to have received their cash aid, some returned theirs. Maria Grace Delgado, an employee of a waxing salon, gave back her SAP subsidy after receiving her cash aid from SSS on Monday.
Sa lahat po ng dalawang nakakuha ng ayuda galing sa gobyerno, sana po isoli rin po natin kasi galing po sa gobyerno to.
Some residents who are not on the master list also tried their luck. Barangay officials had to frequently remind residents to observe physical distancing. So far, about 75% of the 17,000 beneficiaries have received assistance. Over in Barangay Bahay Toro, food vendor Elvira Marange has been trying her luck to secure a SAP form. It's her 4th time to line up for the document.
Kung sinong wala, yung pa hindi nabibigyan.
But the barangay reasons out. They were only handed a little over 9,100 forms. Of this number, 90% have received the dole out. The Quezon City Social Services Development Department said payouts will continue unless the DSWD demands for the return of the funds. As of 6 p.m. last night, about 89% of the city's 377,584 SAP beneficiaries have received their cash aid. For News 5, JC Cosico, we are One News.
The House Minority Bloc is pushing for the gradual transition to general community quarantine in Metro Manila. Speaking to Cito Beltran on One News's agenda, Marikina 2nd District Representative Stella Kimbo says there is now a great need to ease work restrictions in NCR due to the lockdown's detrimental effects on the economy. However, Kimbo warned that the restarting businesses must be done safely and effectively to avoid a resurgence of the coronavirus.
You don't reopen an economy by simply announcing wala nang lockdown.
Okay.
No? Ang pinaka-importante talaga sito is bringing back the confidence of the people. Because right now, many people are afraid. There's a great fear factor. The biggest fear right now is maging Singapore tayo na magkaroon ng resurgence o magkaroon ng second wave. Diba? So yun ang pinakamalaking takot natin. And I think that, Sito, the devil is in the details. We really need detailed guidelines. DOH has to issue those minimum health standards.
We'll pause for a short break, but when the big story returns, at least 13 senators sign a bill granting ABS-CBN provisional license to operate until next year. I'm Jess De Los Santos, and you're watching The Big Story. While congressmen are saying that they need more time to study the franchise renewal bill of ABS-CBN, senators, on the other hand, are back to the grind, filing a bill seeking to grant the beleaguered media giant a provisional franchise.
13 senators signed a bill seeking to allow ABS-CBN to operate until June 2022. The Committee on Public Services, chaired by Senator Grace Poe, will lead the hearing for the provisional franchise. But Poe herself already inhibited from the proceeding to shun any perception of biases.
Hindi porkit na in-extend hanggang 2022 ay sigurado na 25 years. Kaya hindi naman siguro makakasama na i-extend ng maikling panahon para mapag-aralan ang bill na ito ng franchise, kung karapat-dapat ba na i-extend ng 25 years pa. Tapos, ang serbisyo ng pagbibigay ng impormasyon at aliw or entertainment ay tuloy pa rin. At higit sa lahat, hindi mangangamba sa trabaho. Hindi ba na yung mga artista, pero yung mga iba pang mga maliliit na mga nagtatrabaho doon, yung mga crew, cameramen.
Poe explained, though, that the measure won't amount to anything without the blessing of the House of Representatives. A franchise bill, after all, needs to emanate from the lower chamber. But at least Poe says the Senate can start hearing about the provisional franchise for the Kapamilya Network. She's also considering authoring a measure that will resolve the current loopholes in the law, particularly on how companies with expiring franchises should be treated, while the renewal are still pending in Congress.
Kailangan natin ilagay talaga sa isang batas kung kinakailangan na pag ang prangkisa mo ay mag-expire na at ito ay nahain sa Kongreso at ito'y pinag-aaralan at pinagdedebatihan pa, pwede kang automatically extended for a certain period. Diba? So pwede natin gawin yon. Hindi naman natin pwedeng sabihin open-ended forever kasi well, kasi hindi na mawalan ng sense of urgency kaming mga mambabatas. So,
Senator Lito Lapid meanwhile filed a bill seeking to give radio stations with pending franchise renewals a provisional license to continue operations. Under Senate Bill 1522, once the measure is passed, the radio station is automatically given a provisional license while waiting for Congress's decision. Lapid also points out that the National Telecommunications Commission should not be given the authority to decide on which stations will remain in operation and which ones will be shut down if Congress has yet to decide on the renewal. For News 5, Mean Los Baños, we are One News.
This quarantine season, it's easy to get bored with all the time in your hands. Luckily, Smart Communications has launched e-storytelling sessions on its Facebook page where children can still learn while listening to stories. At 8:30 p.m. every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, Kuya Ray goes live to share stories to kids just in time for bed.
Si Onyok, ang mahiyaing manok. Iniunat ang likod, ikinuskos ang paa, itinaas ang leeg, inilatag ang pakpak at saka tumilaok ng matinis at sunod-sunod.
Of course, Dad and Bro can also stay fit while quarantined at home. TNT Katropa and Gilas Pilipinas mainstay Troy Rosario shares drills to stay in shape and how to improve your game. And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250. Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. I'm Jess De Los Santos. We are One News. Good evening.